Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
So much of this Confident Pro mindset training is based on this quote that I love so much from Viktor Frankl, from the book Man's Search for Meaning. And it's between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so I actually will be having a new kind of graphic and visual as part of like the real course, because I've been really working on creating that in a more graphic representation, this quote graphically, but that's not ready yet. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about it this way. So we have stimulus, and before I've talked about it like a circumstance or a fact, our stimulus, and then our response. Okay, so a response is like the feelings or the actions that come from it. So there's something happens, someone says something to us, maybe a comment about the way we speak English, either positive or negative. In our situation, let's say there's a negative comment about the way we speak English. And then there's a feeling of like hurt or embarrassment that comes right after that. Okay, and then, we kind of shut down. The action is that we kind of shut down and we don't feel, we don't speak up as much, things like that. So what Viktor Frankl is saying is between the comment that someone says and the way that we feel or react to it, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And that's where those thoughts come in, okay? That's where that thought level is. So we have the stimulus, we have a space there that are our thoughts, and then we have our reaction to it. And that's where we really dive into with this mindset training is what are we doing with those thoughts and how are we managing those thoughts, okay? And today we're gonna dive into really, before we can kind of build more confident thoughts, we have to really get mindful of like what else is in there, what else is happening in our brain, and what kind of input are we having. So I love, Daisy, that you were saying like, oh, I'm listening to 10 talks, I've got these books, I'm doing all these things that are this input, which is great, but it's like we need to get really aware of what's going into our minds on a daily basis. Have you ever heard this concept of a mental diet? Is this can somebody kind of explain, if you've heard this concept before, can you explain what that means?
I've never heard of the concept before, but I'm assuming that it's basically you're being careful of how you're feeding your mind. So if you like say watch the news, you're not gonna feel great. So you gotta be careful about what you ingest, I imagine.
Yes, I love that. I love that you're going to be careful about what you ingest. So just like a physical diet, like if your food diet, if you're kind of watching what you put into your body, and you're becoming more aware of that, that's usually referred to as a diet, but you're getting conscious of it instead, and you're getting aware of like, okay, this is what I'm putting into my body, and here's how it makes me feel. And there's just a slowing down process that happens when we're getting aware of our food. And the same thing with our mental diet. We're getting, when we're talking about a mental diet, we're getting really aware of what is going into our minds, what's going into our brains, and what we're feeding it. And I love this. My mom always said it when we were growing up, but that which you feed will grow. Okay, that which you feed will grow. So, and just like, it's interesting because just like with the pronunciation training, the very first step to improving pronunciation and accent is we have to slow down, right? We have to slow down to be able to bring that awareness to what our mouth is doing. We have to slow it down so our mind can have time to like, just think about what's happening here. Because when we speak fast, we're skipping over a step there of awareness. And what we're talking about here in the Confident Pro Mindset training is that we're doing the same thing. We're slowing down and we're thinking about our thinking. We're getting aware of what those thoughts are in our mind. And in that awareness, then there's a choice. Like I was saying, in that space, there's a choice. It's our power to choose. So when we're in that space of choosing, then we can decide, okay, do I want this? Is it helping me? Is this, my mental diet, like the things that I'm ingesting every day, is that helping me get to my goal or not? So the question here is your mental diet helping you reach your goals? And we're going to get really detailed in this today. Okay. So first of all, before we even move into thinking about our mental diet, I want you to be thinking about your goals. And I want you to think top 2 or 3 things that are most important to you right now. What is your main focus? And, being in the pronunciation training program, the Pronunciation Pro program, the goal really ends up being, I want to speak clear, confident American English. Okay, so that tends to be kind of what our students, the common goal our students are going for, or what I'm teaching to. Okay, so that typically tends to be one of the goals that we all share. But I recognize that, we're complex people. You guys have a lot going on in your professions and in your personal life and everything else that's happening. And so there's going to be more to it than just your pronunciation in your spoken English goals. So take a minute. I'm gonna pause here for you guys to get clear about what specific goals you're working on right now. Sometimes it's a reminder. Hopefully it's just a reminder so that you have some goals that you're working on. Okay. All right, so hopefully you have, improve my spoken English, build confidence, or whatever, something related to what we're doing, here at Pronunciation Pro, but then adding some other goals. Okay, so we're wanting to get really clear of, is your mental diet helping you reach your goals? Okay, so we're gonna go through and get very deliberate about it. Okay, and a lot of times what happens is when we're not conscious about what our mental diet is, we just are kind of at the mercy of whatever comes our way, and we're not deliberate about it. And when we're not deliberate about it, we let outside influences take over our mental capacity and our, that mental space, instead of being proactive and deciding what we want. Okay, and it's in that proactivity, it's the reactive versus proactive, right? When we're reactive, we're just responding to whatever comes our way. When we're proactive, we are deciding. And that brings a ton of confidence and a ton of personal power when we decide what goes into our minds.
Your voice is important and needs to be heard. If you're ready to speak English clearly and with greater confidence, I invite you to start your free 7-day trial at pronunciationpro.com.